Although there are lots of red flags to look out for, there are still several barriers to identifying a victim. It is important to keep these barriers in mind when trying to identify victims or looking out for signs and red flags. Please take a moment and read through these barriers. Also, to be aware of is the trauma informed and client centered approach to care. Adult and child victims often experience multiple layers of trauma, including psychological and physical damages from their trafficking situations. Emotional effects of trauma can be persistent and devastating. Victims may suffer from anxiety, depression, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, and/or other psychological issues. Many victims struggle with PTSD and may re experience trauma through flashbacks, nightmares, and intrusive thoughts. They may learn avoidance or numbing of trauma related stimuli or triggers such as avoidance of certain places, people, or situations. And they may experience memory loss or hyperarousal. These symptoms contribute to problems with difficulty concentrating, controlling emotions, sudden outbursts of anger, self mutilation, lack of responsiveness, non cooperativeness, and suicidal behaviors. Trauma informed care is a way of approaching and engaging victims by recognizing the presence of trauma symptoms and acknowledging the major role that violence and trauma may have played in their life, and providing services in a way that supports survivor dignity, empowerment, and recovery. An important point to also make is that oftentimes men, boys, and LGBTQ individuals are overlooked when discussing the issue of trafficking. Be mindful that trauma and shame may be experienced differently by individuals of different cultures, sexes, genders, and sexual orientations. Also, traditional talk therapy or counseling may not work for a victim as it could be re traumatizing the victim. So, alternative therapies like art and music therapy, yoga, gardening, journaling, and spiritual activities can be explored. These have been reported by survivors as ways to help heal. Again, services should be client centered, and victims should be allowed flexibility to choose what may best help them heal. Take a moment to read these important aspects of a trauma informed and client centered approach. So, what are some questions to consider asking if you think you may be interacting with a potential victim of trafficking? Take a moment to read through these questions. These questions can be asked at any time, and you may need to ask them once the victim is more stable. However, you should not pepper the potential victim with questions. Instead, it's best to select a few of these questions and ask them in a way that is more of a natural conversation. It may take a while for the answers to come out, and the answers may not always be truthful, especially in the beginning. As discussed earlier, victims may make up stories initially because they may be scared of someone hurting them or their family, or they may have developed a positive bond with the trafficker and may feel that they need to stay loyal and protect the trafficker. If you are asking these questions, make sure to base them on your potential victims, as some questions may not be appropriate for individuals based on their situation. Why is all of this important? The information provided in this training module, especially about identification of a trafficking situation or a victim, barriers to victim identification, how to appropriately interact with a victim, and services and resources available to a victim, is very important because you may be interacting with a potential victim of trafficking or may come into contact with an individual who may be at risk of being trafficked. Many times, victims come to our attention for various needs, but do not necessarily come in identifying as a victim of human trafficking. And this is because oftentimes they don't realize that they are a victim of this crime. They may not even know what the term human trafficking means. Or the issue they may come to your attention for may mask the trafficking victimization. That's why, as a service provider, knowing red flags is key. Knowing the information learned in this training gives you an opportunity to identify a victim and provide them the appropriate services. It also allows you to educate others around you and spread awareness. If you encounter a victim and the individual is in immediate danger, always call 911. Always think about safety for you and the potential victim before jumping into a situation. If you encounter a child victim who is under 18 years of age and the parent or caretaker is involved in the trafficking, call the New York State statewide Central Register for Child Abuse and Maltreatment at the provided number. For additional information and resources on human trafficking or to get confidential assistance, you can call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline at 1-888 373 7888, or you can send them a text to 233-733 with the text info or help, and someone will text you back. You may also visit their website or email them. Additional resources are included on the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance's Human Trafficking website, which includes a list of the Response to Human Trafficking Program service providers. You may also visit the New York State Office of Children and Family Services Human Trafficking website or email them for non-emergency child trafficking specific questions at the email address provided. And for services for victims available through the New York State Office of Victim Services, you can visit their website. Let's see what you have learned. Answer the questions on the following slide. Take a few minutes to briefly answer these questions. Knowing this information is key to helping victims. If you are unable to answer a question, please see the next slide for an answer key which will tell you the slides you can consult for the answers. Thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have questions, concerns, or need additional information, please check the resources for contact information.